Welcome everyone and bienvenue to our session on the second SDG Academy session of our Action Week for today. I want to give a special welcome to our speaker, Ms. Anneloes van den Ende. I wanted to elaborate a bit about this SDG Action Week. This year is organized by the National Commission on the Agenda 2030 and SDG implementation of Curacao. We are part, actually, the National Commission is part of the government of Curacao, and we have a team with members from all 9 ministries. I hope that you have seen our program for this week and that you have subscribed to different sessions because these are all subjects that are very relevant for Curacao and sustainable development. We don't have to forget that this week is also our Semana Cultura with the theme Banco no Cuban Planta, with whom we work together, seeing as the topic of culture is very relevant for most of the SDGs, because culture is found throughout the whole SDG agenda. During this week, you will find this theme as a common thread, especially in our 3 roundtable sessions. Tomorrow will be your last chance to participate in the roundtable session of Culture for Prosperity, and this session will take place from 9 to 11. So feel free to sign up for that session. And this whole week we have a total of 5 SDG Academy sessions, in which we take a deep dive into certain aspects of the SDGs. This afternoon, we have our 4th session on data on the SDGs. And as a policy advisor, Anneloes is part of the Secretariat of the National SDG Commission, and she's also acting chair at this moment. She has been working on the SDGs since 2017, and also participating in the writing of the first voluntary national review of Curacao and the Kingdom. The program for our session, for this session now, one moment, I have a technical glitch at this moment. I hope that you're seeing it as it should be. No, but anyway, this is how you're going to get it at this moment. Thank you. But this is the program for today is this, that we are going to have a keynote by Anneloes, talking on the on data and the SDGs. And afterwards, we will have in the chat box, it's possible for you to ask your questions, which Anneloes will be very happy to answer at the end of her presentation. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Anneloes.
Thank you, Nicole, for this introduction. And yes, welcome everybody. Welcome to this SDG Academy. Very happy to see you all. I hope I can give you some more information and some knowledge about the SDGs and how we work with them in government and how we collect the data on the SDGs. I have a little poll where I want to start with, if that's possible. If you can, it would be really nice if you can fill out the poll, just 3 simple questions on your organization and data, just that we have some kind of view on who is with us today. And the first one is, are you working with data in your organization? And the second one is about SDGs in your organization. Do you work with the SDGs in your organization? And maybe you even work with SDG indicators in your organization. So just a few moments for everybody to fill out the poll. I think I'm gonna end it now. It's just a quick view on what's and share results. So if everything's okay, you can see the results. So 78% of you is working with data in the organization. So that's a lot. I think that's why you all are here. 67% is working with the SDGs in the organization. That's very good. I think that's, I hope that's going to be even more after this presentation, of course. And working with SDGs in your indicators in your organization, that is 67% already. So I think that's a lot. Thank you for this quick poll. Well, I'm going to share my screen as well, and I hope you can all see my presentation. You see it in the right mode, Nicole? Yeah, okay, very good.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on data and the SDGs and how we use the SDG indicators and the local indicators in the monitoring process of the SDGs within government. Yes, the outline of my presentation is very short. First, I want to take you to the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs and the targets and the indicators that are involved. How do we work on data within governments, and which progress do we make on the indicators, just to give you a good overview of what we are doing. How did we use the indicators in our voluntary national review? And at the end, I want to have a call to action, a little bit like my colleague Pacey had yesterday in her SDG Academy on the local agenda. So how can you organize, how can your organization contribute to all of this? Well, the Agenda 2030 is built on 3 principles. It's the one of universality. So the agenda is applicable to all countries, developed and developing countries, but also on all levels within the country. So on government level, on local level, on barrier level, it doesn't matter. So it's applicable everywhere. It's also an integrated agenda. So if you work on one aspect of the agenda, it will always influence the other aspects of the agenda. If you work on your social environment, it will have an impact on your economy. It will have an impact on your environment itself. So it's very integrated, and it also helps you think in getting all these in making sure that you involve everything, and you don't see anything of, you have a positive influence as well as a negative influence, and you can take everything together. It's also built on the principle of no one left behind, and that means especially attention for the vulnerable people within society, but also to make sure that you involve all stakeholders. So it's not only a governmental agenda, it's most of all agenda of all people. Well, the agenda is accepted by 169 countries in the world. And the 17 goals are part of this agenda. And I hope everybody knows the goals. Maybe you know them by heart, but they're very broad. They come from no poverty and zero hunger, good health and well-being, to reduce inequalities, a very important one, I think, myself, but also climate action and partnerships for the goals. So these are the 17 goals. We have the Agenda 2030. It's a little bit broader than only the SDG goals. But we have the 17 goals in the agenda. And within the 17 goals, we see 169 targets. And the 169 targets, they are on different levels, or you need different stakeholders for reaching those targets. And if you take a good look at them, you see that 135 of those targets are really the responsibility of the national governments. So you see some overlap as well in the other stakeholders. So we have targets for which are you can only require by international cooperation. You have targets, you need involvement of the private sector, and you have targets that are mostly met on local level. And I put some examples in the sheet. So for the local level, for example, if you're talking about public spaces, you need towns to work with you in organizing their how they want to look and how they want to have their parks and the social environment for the people in their town. So it's local government you need. If you're talking about the economy and you want to create jobs in SDG 8, you need the involvement of the private sector. For a lot of targets, you need legislation, or you need institutions on country level. So like in 1610, you really, if you want to have access to information, that should be arranged or taken care of on government level. And so also, if you look at 10.6, where you see that international cooperation is really needed if you want developing countries also to enter decision-making processes in international organizations. So you cannot do this alone. That's the integrated part of this of the agenda, of the goals, but also of the targets. So besides the 169 targets, we have the 247 indicators, and you see two different numbers here, 247 SDG indicators, and you also see the 232 indicators. I think the indicators are still evolving. It's been a part of the process since 2015, and sometimes it's just sometimes the indicator themselves changes, or they have extra indicators or less indicators. So that's an international process. We have no influence on that. But what you see here is the measurement of the indicators, the possible measurement of the indicators on global level. And you can go to the website, sdgtracker.org, and you can see on global level what the indicator look like. So which way are we going as a world, as a globe? And you can also use sometimes your country and see what your country is doing in a specific indicator. Unfortunately, it's not possible to see Curaçao on these indicators lists because we're part of the kingdom. It's also, yeah, that's a pity, of course. What you see is that not all data is available. And I think that's the red thread as well. Not all, there's no country that can measure all the indicators. It's impossible. And for Curaçao, it's also, well, we have very limited financial and capacity measures, of course. So we have to make some changes, some choices in this with what are we going to do. Well, how are we going to do it in Curaçao? We have our National Commission on SDG implementation. And this is the structure that we work with in government. So we have our Minister of General Affairs, of Governance, Planning and Services and Finance that are the leading board, as we say it. We have, of course, very important our people, prosperity and planet pillars. In those pillars, we work as ministries together, but we also want to reach out to our to all other stakeholders in these pillars, and that's where the things are happening. But very important, of course, for this data and data gathering is, of course, the statistical commission that we have. So in the Statistical Commission, the Central Bureau of Statistics, the Central Bank, the Chamber of Commerce, the Curaçao Tourist Board and VIC are working together in gathering the SDG indicators for Curaçao. So they are the main data providers for the SDGs and for measuring our progress on the SDGs. Well, as I told, we really need to make some make some choices, and we did so in our roadmap for SDG implementation that was published in 2018. We have 6 priority SDGs for Curaçao. Number 1, no poverty. Number 3, good health and well-being. Number 4, quality education. Number 7, affordable and clean energy. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. And number 14, life below water. So those are the priorities for Curaçao, and our roadmap is built around these priorities and the priorities that Curaçao has in these 6 SDGs. So also our statistical commission is working on gathering data on these 6 SDGs. At least that is their priority as well. So how they made, of course, an inventarization on these SDGs. They started with the 6 priorities. And as you see, we have, with the 6 priorities, we have 57 targets, and we have 86 indicators only by these 6 with these 6 priority SDGs. So from these 86 indicators, we have 27 direct available indicators. That means that we already have surveys or other research available to make those the official SDG indicator. At this moment, we are working on 17 other indicators. So that means we have to gather some extra information or some other some other sources. We have to use some other sources to be able to get the indicator right. At this moment, so we have of our priority SDGs, we have available 31% of the indicators, and we will have available 20% in the near future. Well, part of this whole process for the statistical commission is, of course, you're making sure that you have your data source, that you know where your data comes from or should come from, because not all the data is available yet, or the organizations don't have the good quality yet of the data. So it takes a lot of steps before we have the official indicator. And the indicators are very complex sometimes as well. So they made an inventarization, you can see it here, of all the data providers and the sources of the data that is needed. And here you see how complex it is to measure one indicator. So we saw in the other sheet that you had 86 indicators only by the priority SDGs, and for every indicator we have an indicator sheet in which the indicator, of course, itself is visible. So this one is indicator 8.5.2. It's about unemployment rate by sex, by age, and by persons with disabilities. So that's the official SDG indicator. So that means that you not only need your unemployment rate, but you also need, if you're a man or a woman in your unemployment, what your age is, and if you have a different disability or not. So the indicator itself is very, it's samengesteld. So you need different things, different data to get your indicator right. And that's quite a process, and that's why it takes so long. And we have only a few indicators at this moment. So I can, in this sheet, you can see where we stand at this moment for our indicators. And it's always a little bit of a shock, but I think it's also a reality check. In the beginning, you see the 6 indicators that are the priorities. And after that, you see the other indicators that we have just by other sources that we didn't really do a lot of work for, but we have it, so we can produce the indicators. And that's also very nice. So if you look at no poverty, we have 2 indicators that are right. We have one indicator that is that we are working on right now and can be available in short notice. And we have the gray block you see, an indicator that we expect to have very soon. So you see, for example, in good health and well-being, that we have a lot of that there are a lot of indicators in that goal. But we also have a lot of information and data on this one, and a lot of indicators are already available for us. Also working on a lot of indicators, and well, it says a little bit about the data mindedness, I think, of that sector, and the way that that is being worked in that sector. And you also see that at the economic growth SDG number 8, that we have already a lot of indicators. On the other indicators, for example, on life below water, we have none. So that's also, well, a little bit disturbing, I think. One of the main sources that we really, that we hope is going to be available very soon is the census. So of course, the objective of the census is not to gather SDG indicators, but we try to make sure that we have some indicators incorporated in the survey, and that was possible for the no poverty 3 indicators that should be available after the census 2022, and on quality education, you also see a lot of indicators being available after the census 2022. So we need to do the census first, then all the data has to be verwerkt, and then we can get the data information. So these are the things that we are working on right now, and will be available, I hope, in 2023. Well, this slide, you know, we're talking about data and indicators, but you don't want to miss the bigger view. And that's why I put this slide in, because what you want to do with data and with indicators is, of course, support your policy cycle. And the policy cycle is about agenda setting. What do you want to reach? And I think Curaçao did that in our National Development Plan, and also in the roadmap for SDG implementation. If you're talking about SDGs, we have an action plan. What are we going to do? And we have local accelerators. So I think we did a good job on that one. Then you see that we have a policy formulation, policy adaptation, and policy implementation, and that mainly takes place within the ministries. So there must be, we have to work on a good connection between the National Development Plan and the roadmap, and the things that we write and decide in our policy formulation and adaptation cycle. So there's a big connection between the SDGs and the policies of government. And of course, we have the evaluation at the end. Did you reach with your policies what you have put in your agenda? And in the evaluation as well as the policy formulation, data has to have an important role. And I think the evidence-based policy making that we try to reach with the SDGs, and the SDGs have a very important role in making that very clear, also within government, but I think also broader than government in an organization. So why are you doing things? Are you doing it just because you think that this is a big chance in the market, or people need something, or do you really have evidence that they are in need of something? And of course, in the evaluation, in how did you do and where do you have to adjust your policies? The evaluation cycle for the SDGs is our voluntary national review. We did one in 2017. the SDGs just started in 2015, so the 2017 voluntary national review was very emphasized on the process and what we were planning to do. And I think the 2022 voluntary national review goes more into in-depth in what kind of policies we wrote and we implemented, and how does the data look like at this moment. And that was a very difficult to get that in, but I think that was very important as well to get it in, and I'm going to take you to the process how we did that. So in our VNR, we have the structure of the VNR, and it was built around our local accelerators. Maybe you saw the SDG Academy yesterday. Pesi Girigori told us about the local agenda and the different accelerators we have for Curaçao on the SDGs. So there are some specific, I'm going to show them later. But around the SDG, around the accelerators, we took a look at which data is available, where do we stand as Curaçao at this moment, what kind of policies that we implement and what do we do in actions and projects, what are the successes around those projects, and what challenges and solutions do we face. We also embedded spotlights in the VNR. So special initiatives from within Curaçao, from NGOs, from the private sector, it doesn't matter, as long as they were connected with the SDGs, and other countries could learn from it or take a look at it and see what kind of implementation we are doing, and might be helpful for their own implementation. So the spotlights, we put it in there as well. So how did the data at a glance? How did we come to the data at a glance? Because as I just showed in the previous sheets, our official data, the official SDG indicators were very limited. They were there, and we used them as much as possible, but they were very limited. But you do wanna measure your progress in your local agenda. So I think other countries are using this method as well. So if you don't have the official indicators available, what is available in your local indicators, and what data do we have on the local indicators? So we make this this big inventarization, I can tell you. So we looked at all the SDGs, all the targets and the goals and the targets and the indicators in depth. So here I have an example of one small part of that inventarization, where you see the SDG 15, the life on land. And this is an example. So if you have the target 15.1, you see by 2030 ensure the conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of terrestrial and inland freshwater ecosystems and their services, in particular forests, wetlands, mountains, and drylands, are in line with obligations under international agreements. So that is the target, and within the target you see two indicators. The first one is forest area as a proportion of total land area, and the second one is proportion of important sites for terrestrial and freshwater biodiversity that are covered by protected areas by ecosystem type. Well, for both indicators we had no official data, so we could not evaluate on this one, and that of course is a problem, and we do want to show the world, or we do want to show in our VNR what we are doing on this area. So we came up with our national indicators, and I think so they are really related to the official SDG indicators, but they are not exactly the indicator. So in the first for the first indicator, the coverage of natural parks related to land area was used, and we have an official source for that one as well. So it's very official data. It's an official indicator. It's not the SDG indicator. So that's how we used the data and indicators throughout the whole VNR. And we came up with these so in the VNR, you can find this in our data sections. First, you see our accelerator. It's improved education. Improved education is in the middle, and we have 5 outcomes for improved education. So we link them to the SDGs. So which SDG is influenced by this, and we link that to our official indicators. And if there's a number there, we really use an official indicator. If there's no number, we then use an official indicator, but we use a local indicator. So you see here we have 4 indicators available and used in our VNR, and that's how we used all the accelerators we looked at in this way. And you can find this data in our VNR available. I'm just going to scroll through them because there are a lot of sheets, but I wanted to show sometimes we have a lot of data available, or we are able to get a lot of local indicators from our ministries or from other sources, but sometimes it's very difficult as well. So here you see reduced poverty is a very complex accelerator, as you see. So a lot of things are interlinked. The beauty of the SDGs is of seeing those interlinkages. So here you see the indicators we have and the reduced poverty in the middle. So I'm going to scroll through these. The healthy population, here you see we have a lot of indicators. Most of them are the official indicators. But they're all on good health and well-being. They're green all, so it's good health and well-being. And for example, none on SDG 11, which does have some health, some aspects of healthy population on our local agenda. So I'm going to scroll a little bit further. So this can all be looked up in our VNR if you want to see this. Environmental sustainability, we had some indicators as well, especially on water, but also on renewable energy and sustainable land use. On climate action, we have very little indicators, I can tell. So that's a little more. So what are our next steps? I think, well, the census is a very big step and a really important resource for our data and our SDG indicators. I also think that the local agenda and the local indicators we want to produce and make sure that they are maybe even more linked. I showed you some of them, but I think we can do even a better job on them to make sure that we can measure our progress. The data awareness within government, a lot of the data resources are in government, also in other organizations, and cooperation with government is sometimes difficult. Even when it's in government, it's difficult. So making sure that the data is available and is of good quality, it's important. And stimulate the data-driven policy making by as well in the policy making as in the evaluation. Make sure that you measure the right things, and if it's possible, of course, make sure that you measure your SDG indicator. So awareness on the SDGs within government for the policy is also very important, to make sure that policy makers know which SDGs they are working on and try to implement those SDGs in the policies and in the data gathering that is necessary for the evaluation of the policies. I think also a next step is data from non-official data providers. So we have the Statistical Commission, the official data providers, but we really need other organizations to put in their data as well. NGOs, private sector, academia, they have they are working on things that are very related to the SDGs and can measure maybe some aspects of the SDGs, or at least aspects of the local agenda that we're working on. So I think cooperation there is very needed as well. And making data available for the public. CBS is doing a job on that. We as an SDG Commission would really like to have a dashboard. We're working on that as well, but it's not there yet. So we can make sure that public can use this data as well. Because data is important, and I don't have to tell you, 70% of you is already working with data. If you measure, you know, meten is weten. Of course, you want to make informed decisions and help identify problems in a proper way. I think also it saves you time, and it shows where you are doing well. So the VNR is also one of the most important instruments we have to see that we are doing well and we are going on the right way or not. It can also help you get funding. I think maybe for the private sector, for academia, it's very important. You can get funding by gathering the best of the data that is needed. So a lot of funding of big organizations, of the AU or of other organizations, it's linked to the SDGs and showing that you work with SDGs and showing that you have data on the SDGs, or in what way you made progress on the SDGs is very important to show when you have when you're doing a research proposal or something, another proposal for projects. And I think the SDGs can really help on that. Everybody, because everybody in the whole world is speaking the same language. Well, how can you work on the on data in your own organization, and how can you work on the SDGs in your own organization? Very important, of course. I think you can use your data in your policy, in your strategy. Use data for your strategy and your policy planning, of course. You collect data probably already in your organization to improve your organization. Make sure that the data is of very good quality and it's really garbage in, garbage out. And using international standards and definition can really help you. Even CBS can help you if you have a problem with that, or you don't know which standard you should use. Ask them. They're open for it and they can help you. Of course, they also would like to have your data, make it available to others through the CBS, and make sure that everybody of the data is accessible, and everybody has. It makes business. It can create business opportunities, but also help NGOs or help other organizations to get to take the right actions. And what I also want to mention here is you put your data on a data platform. So Curaçao Data Driven is a platform for Curaçao that can be used, and so we can learn from each other and we can use each other's data, making sure that everybody can profit from it. So my last sheet, I think, is a call to action. How can your organization can contribute to the SDGs? I think the link, I'll have a slide, and the next slide is an example of how you as a business can use SDGs in your business model. And tomorrow we have also an SDG Academy on the business case of SDGs, and I think that could be very interesting for people and for organizations to follow that academy. Align your data collection with official SDG targets. As I said, it can be important if you want to receive grants or funding. And it can also help other organizations and give insights. Make also publicly available that you're working on, publicly known that you're working on the SDGs. I think if we all do that, it makes your organization visible, and it makes it more easy for others to go to your organization and ask maybe for data or for indicators. So in the next slide is really my last slide, and it's about this one. This slide was is from our introduction to the SDGs by Jocelyn Cruz. She gave this presentation on Monday morning, and she used this one, she used the value chain of your organization just to map where you have impact on the SDGs. And this was an example, of course. But as you see, if you put your value chain in the middle, you can see what it's an instrument to get to know where you are influencing the SDGs and maybe where you want to collect data on for your organization to improve for the future of our next generations. So this was my presentation for now. Thank you, and I'm glad to answer some questions if there are.
Yes, thank you, Anneloes, for your very interesting presentation on data. I want to remind all the participants that if you have any questions, you can write them in the Q&A. I will start with the first question that we already have in the Q&A, Anneloes. Mr. Heinrich Angela, he asks, what would you consider your biggest impediment for collecting the data? Technical, logistical, policy? What do you think?
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think on all these issues, we have a lot of work to do. Yeah, the capacity building is very important as well, I think. So yeah, we have, of course, we are working together with all the data providers is a problem. Where we can we need resources in time. You know, you need a lot of time to get to your data providers and make sure that they understand what you need for what your data need is, and make sure that the data in the future is collected in different ways and is delivered in good format. So yeah, so that's technical, that's logistical. If you look at policy, it's also very important to make sure that the data is in the policies.
Yes, and I could add as well that what you just said, like data literacy is actually what you just described, but also the fact that to make sure that you're talking on two different levels sometimes. So the data provider sometimes talks on a different level than, for example, CVS talks on what data they need, because in order to calculate the indicator, then you'll need certain type of data, and the data provider thinks that they have information, but not at the level that is needed for the calculation. So these are different. Also with policy, in policy, we are also working on we think that we're talking on the same, we were talking about the same indicator, but there is another level of implementation of the SDG when it comes to policy or whether it comes to data. Yeah, I just wanted to. Yes.
Yeah.
And the next question, a few years from Heinrich Angela. A few years ago, the government of Curaçao invested in the creation of a national socioeconomic database, the NSET, an online database containing data on economic and social indicators for Curaçao, which was made available to the public. Additionally, indicators regarding the Sustainable Development Goals are also included in this database. The website project has unfortunately been decommissioned. Will this initiative be continued? If not, what other avenues will be pursued for data collection and public distribution through an open data platform?
Well, very good question, of course, because yes, the NSET was a very important step and very important database as well. Unfortunately, it was built on a website, technical website of the UN, and I think they stopped providing support for that website. So, but that doesn't mean the data is gone. So I was just touching the idea of a data dashboard in my presentation, and we really want to have a data dashboard, and it should be like the NSET. So available for everybody, and also vervoed by the same data resources, and only it would be a dashboard and not the NSET. And I think that is what Curaçao needs, and I would like to have it a little bit more around the SDGs and our local agenda. So what is the local agenda for Curaçao, which SDGs, which SDG indicators we have for the local agenda, and structure it a little bit around that way. But you can structure it in different ways, and as long as the data is available and accessible and gives insight for the public. So make it publicly available, absolutely, yeah.
Our colleague would also like to add, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, I saw in the Q&A, I saw that Directorado de Comunicación also would like to answer that. That's why I thought that our colleague also wanted to answer. Okay, then the next question is from an anonymous attendee. Looking at fishery, SDG 14, what are the information that you need? And actually Petra is answering this one, but
yeah, I can send the indicators directly to you. I have made a little list, and the list is longer, but if you want to know them exactly, you can contact me at the CBS, but I will just send it right away, and then you will get a list of all the indicators we are needing on SDG 14.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Petra, for.
I hope that's enough.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I don't think we can mention them all at this time.
No,
we don't have time for that. No, and we can look it up, of course, in the SDG indicator of the official indicators. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have sent them already, and then you can contact me at CBS.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And the last question that is currently in the Q&A is, how can the SDG committee or the governments can provide data by the private sector?
Well, that's
sorry, it's a question by Andrew Krishner.
Well, the scanning of data, or is the data, is the quality of the data okay? Does it measure to international standards? Can we use it, or maybe it's just a little part of an indicator? I tried to show in one of these sheets that sometimes you need different kind of data to get all the information together for one SDG indicator. So that all happens in the Statistical Commission. So if there is private sector data available, and the private sector is willing to share the data, we do want to have the data, of course, we do want to have the data, but we can maybe use it in as a part of an indicator, and the quality assurance of that is with our Statistical Commission. Yes. So I hope that's answering your question as well. That also, I think you touched upon it as well, Nicole. It's sometimes it's very, people think that they have data available, and yes, most of the time it's very valuable, but that doesn't mean that it's the official SDG indicator. And that's also why we use, of course, the local indicators. And I think other countries in the world do that as well. I saw that in other VNRs as well. So it's not forbidden, absolutely not. but you do have to remind yourself that it's not the official indicator, and sometimes you're not meeting the SDGs as they were meant to be. So be aware of that one. But I think for your local government and for your local agenda, it can be very valuable. And as long as we are open and transparent about what we are using. Yeah.
Well, thank you. There are no more questions. No, yeah, no, there are no new questions. So I would like to thank you all. I don't know if you want to have a closing remark, Annaloes, or invite everyone to the rest of the week.
Yeah, well, of course, go to our next SDG Academy tomorrow. I think the business case of SDGs, I'm very curious about what it is. Someone from the UN is talking, Mark Thomas. He's going to give that presentation. So I'm very curious what he's going to tell us. But also on data, of course, because we really need each other to take next steps in data. And you know, the SDGs are a great vehicle to do that, but data is important anyway. So that's my big takeaway, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for participating this afternoon in the SDG Academy, and we hope to see you again in our next session.